Ron, when I decided to do this podcast, one of the guys that I went, he's got his new show on Netflix, Dave Letterman, The Next Guest Needs No Introduction. I can't tell you how much admiration I have for the way you conduct an interview. You make your interviewees shine, the way you bounce off of whatever that, whether it be Don or anybody else says spontaneously. Who would be the guys that you admire the most, from the Johnny Carsons to the David Lettermans to the Jay Lenos?
Well, there's a good one. Carson right away. I used to build early in my career trip, I was a DJ. So I would work the evening slot from 8 to midnight spinning records on CKRD in Red Deer, Alberta. And I really learned a lot about timing by doing that job, because songs have various beds of music before the vocals begin. Santa Esmeralda, Please Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, is like 57 seconds before the singer begins. So I could create a 57-second story. Whereas Debbie Boone, You Light Up My Life, 4 seconds. So you learn to mentally edit on the fly because of your song introductions. And then I would always build into the last part of the night a 3-record sweep that I would ask my colleague, who was coming on at midnight, to run the last 2 cuts of music so that I could get home, because I wanted to see Johnny Carson. It came on at midnight in Red Deer, Alberta. And I wanted to see his monologue, and I wanted to see just what you talked about, that grace of being an interviewer who would let the guest shine. I mean, the great Johnny Carson was a great straight man. I know that Ed McMahon was supposed to be the straight man, but in a lot of ways, I'll tell you a story. Steve Martin. Steve Martin was preparing to go on the circuit. He would do Merv Griffin's show, and I'm not sure who all had shows in that era, but certainly Johnny Carson's The Tonight Show was going to be a crowning moment in his little tour of late night talk. Mike Douglas. So he was preparing a bit that he could tell when he went on these shows. All it would be is like, what's up with you? And now he had an answer, right? So the answer he was going to create to what he'd been doing in the last, say, 6 months was he had bought a Greyhound bus, and he was converting it to become like a sports car. He was going to soup up the engine. He was going to make it a rocket ship. And he had painted a big dog on the side. He made it really flashy, and it was going to be like a Lamborghini, this Greyhound bus. And his thinking was that he could pull that bus up to the curb, and let's say there's an attractive woman on the sidewalk and he wanted to say, hey, you want to get in the back seat? Well, the odds are 43-1 because I've got a Greyhound bus. This is his joke. Not appropriate for the time, but back in the day, you could tell that story. And he said, I went on Merv Griffin, and as soon as I said I got a Greyhound bus, Merv interrupted. I went on Mike Douglas, and as soon as I started to talk about the Greyhound bus, Mike interrupted. Only Johnny Carson let me paint the picture, get to the punchline, and have enough time to have the punchline sit. Carson was brilliant. So watching him was inspiring. And Letterman's born on my birth date, which is April the 12th. So I loved Letterman too. And I kind of thought, oh, that must be good karma. If Letterman's April 12th, maybe I can do this. But Carson and Hodge over on the Hockey Night side, just for the penetrating research that I could tell went into the work he did. And then we had a lot of local sportscasters out in Red Deer, Alberta, who I thought were very gracious. I think the way you and John had always done the broadcasts was that, very warm approach. And my heroes out west, guys named Ernie Afghanis, and, there's just a bunch of them that were. John Wells was out there in Al McCann. They were all people you felt you could go and knock on the door and borrow something or have a beer with.